A people crushed by bondage were lifted from despair when Yahweh raised a deliverer. Moses, the man who challenged an empire, plagues struck, waters split, and a nation walked into freedom under his leadership. At a mountain burning with fire, they entered a covenant with the Holy One and built a sanctuary for his presence. Now the journey continues, and the question becomes, how can they draw near to the God who dwells among them? Then the voice of Yahweh called, not from the heights of Sinai nor the storm of thunder, but from the stillness within the tent of meeting, where glory dwelled in veiled nearness. Moses stood before the sacred entrance, and there the divine word came, steady, solemn, weight-bearing like incense rising before dawn. And Yahweh said, "Speak to the sons of Israel." His command moved like fire through still air, instructing the people on how they may draw near, how flesh and blood may approach the holy without being consumed. He declared that when anyone among the people desired to bring an offering, an approach present to Yahweh, it must come from the living creatures of their herds or flocks, not taken at random, nor chosen with haste, but selected with care and reverence. And if the offering was one of assent, a burnt offering lifted entirely into flame and smoke, it must be a flawless male from the herd, without blemish or flaw, whole and unbroken. To the entrance of the tent, the worshipper would bring it forward so that acceptance might rest upon him before Yahweh. And the one who brought the offering would lay his hand upon the head of the animal, a silent act yet heavy with meaning, so that it might stand in his place, shielding him beneath a covering of propitiation. Then the worshipper himself would slay the bull before Yahweh, and the sons of Aaron, the priests, would draw near to receive the lifeblood, the sacred life flow, and they would sprinkle it carefully around the altar that stood at the opening of the tent of meeting. The offering was then flayed, its form divided, piece by ordered piece. The sons of Aaron set fire on the altar and arranged the wood, making ready the place of rising flame. They laid the portions, the pieces, the head, the suet, upon the fire, while the inward parts and legs were washed in water, cleansed before being lifted into flame. Then the priest caused the whole offering to ascend, its smoke curling upward as a fragrant aroma before Yahweh, an ascent offering, wholly consumed. And if the offering was not from the herd but from the flock, from sheep or goats, still it must be flawless. The worshipper would slay it on the north side of the altar before Yahweh, and once more the sons of Aaron would take the blood and sprinkle it around the altar. The priest arranged the pieces, the head and the suet, upon the wood set in fire, and the inward parts and legs were washed. Then the whole was given to flame, ascending as smoke, pleasing before Yahweh. And if one brought an offering of ascent from among the birds, turtle doves or young pigeons, the priest would carry it to the altar. There its head would be pinched away and burned upon the altar, while its blood was drained against the side. The crop and its contents were removed and cast upon the ash heap to the east of the altar, where remnants of offerings rested in silent testimony. Then the bird was split at the wings, but not torn apart, and placed upon the fire, rising in smoke upon the altar. So the command was given, and the pattern established: flame, blood, washing, and ascent. Each offering a gift rising upward, each act a drawing near, each breath of smoke a fragrant aroma before Yahweh, the one who called. And when a soul desired to draw near, not with blood nor with smoke from burning flesh, but with the fruit of the earth, with labor ground fine in reverence, Yahweh gave command for the mincha, the grain offering. Let it be flour, fine and sifted, pure and without leaven. Upon it the worshipper was to pour oil, golden and flowing, and place frankincense in its midst, the resin of fragrant trees, sacred to the nostrils of the Most High. This was the offering of the humble, the quiet gesture of devotion, the work of hands offered up in simplicity. It was to be brought to the sons of Aaron, the priests of Yahweh, and from this gift a memorial portion was to be drawn, a fistful of flour, oil, and frankincense together. The priest would lift it up and cast it into the flame of the altar, where it would rise in fragrant smoke, a fire offering to Yahweh, sweet in his presence. Yet not all was consumed. What remained belonged to Aaron and his sons, a most holy portion taken from what was offered to Yahweh by fire. Thus the offering, though given unto the heavens, returned in part to serve the consecrated ones on earth. And if the offering came baked in the oven, let it be unleavened cakes, perforated and mingled with oil, each one anointed, set apart. Or if it was prepared upon a griddle, let it be unleavened as well, mixed with oil, broken into pieces, and again poured over with oil, so even in morsels the offering was marked with sacred intent. Or if it came from a deep vessel, boiled and prepared in oil, it too was acceptable, so long as it was pure. In every form, the priest would lift a memorial portion from the whole and cause it to fume upon the altar. It was to rise in smoke, fragrant and pleasing to Yahweh. The rest, again, belonged to the priesthood, most holy from among the fire offerings. But no leaven was to enter the flame, no yeast which puffs and corrupts, no honey, sweet but fermenting. These were not to ascend in smoke to Yahweh. They might be brought as offerings of first fruits, yes, but never placed upon the altar to rise in fire. The altar was reserved for what was enduring, unspoiled, set apart. Yet every offering, every mincha, was to be seasoned with salt. Not once was the covenant of salt to be forgotten. It was the sign of enduring promise, of preservation and steadfastness. On all of your approach presents, Yahweh had spoken, you shall bring near salt to Yahweh your Elohim. This salt was not for taste, it was for covenant, the eternal agreement written not on scrolls, but in the very ingredients of sacrifice. And if a soul brought an offering of the first fruits, new grain, pollinated ears scorched by fire, he was to bring them as groats from the fresh harvest, a gift of the earth's first strength. Oil was to be poured upon it, frankincense placed above. The priest would take from its groats oil and incense and cause a memorial portion to rise upon the altar. Thus, even in what was grown by the sweat of the brow, the soul could draw near to Yahweh. No blood was spilled, yet the fire still rose. No flesh was burned, yet the offering ascended. It was devotion made visible, flour, oil, incense, salt, gifts of the earth transfigured in flame. And Yahweh spoke again of offerings, not of sin, nor of guilt, but of peace. When a soul desired to draw near in thanksgiving or vow, in joy or fullness of heart, there was the Zevach Shelamim, the sacrifice of peace. It was not a cry for mercy, but a song of communion. Not the mourning of guilt, but the fragrance of fellowship. The one who brought it could be man or woman, the beast, male or female, but without blemish still, whole before the Holy One. The worshipper laid his hand upon the head of the offering, a silent declaration. This gift is mine, this life I surrender. Then the animal was slain at the entrance to the tent of meeting, and the sons of Aaron, the priests of Yahweh, took its blood and cast it about the altar, encircling flame with the sacred life, marking the threshold of heaven's table. From this peace offering, the portions were chosen, not the flesh, but the inward glory, the fat that covered the innards, the rich folds that rested above the organs, the kidneys nestled near the loins, and the lobe of the liver lifted away with care. These, the inner treasures of the beast, were offered to Yahweh. The priests placed them atop the altar, above the wood and above the ascent offering already burning. There the peace offering joined the fire, rising with fragrance, mingling in the smoke of heaven. A fire offering, pleasing to Yahweh. If the offering came from the flock, a sheep, male or female, it too was brought forward, flawless and willing. The worshipper laid his hand again upon its head and slew it before the tent. Blood was sprinkled around the altar, sealing the circle of approach. Then the fat was taken, the whole tail, perfect and thick, cut near the spine, the covering fat above the inward parts, the kidneys, and the liver's lobe. All these were given to the flame. They burned not as waste, but as bread before Yahweh, a sacred meal consumed by fire. Or if the offering came as a goat, the ritual was the same. The hand pressed upon the head, the life given up, the blood cast round the altar. The inward fat was lifted, the sacred portions taken. And again, the priest caused them to fume upon the fire, ascending as fragrance, a fire offering to Yahweh. Thus the feast was shared, part to the altar, part to the priesthood, part to the worshipper, the table of heaven and earth united. Yet a boundary remained, clear and inviolable. All the fat was for Yahweh. It was never to be eaten, nor was the blood to pass the lips of any soul. These were his alone, eternal signs in every generation, in every dwelling. Life and richness belonged to Yahweh. So the sacrifice of peace did not merely burn, it spoke. It declared communion, boundary, and joy. Fire licked the fat as fragrance rose, and the people drew near, not in fear, but in holy gladness. Peace upon the altar, peace upon the earth. Then Yahweh spoke again to Moses with a voice steady as judgment, yet laden with mercy. His words traced the shape of unseen sin, the kind not born of rebellion, but of human shadow, unintentional fault, hidden transgression, veiled error that still defiled. Even when the heart had not meant to stray, the law had been broken, and the breach cried out for healing. To this Yahweh gave the chatat, the sin offering. It was not for shame alone, but for cleansing, for restoration, for covering the soul under sacred shelter. If the anointed priest himself should sin, he who bore the names of Israel on his breast, who stood nearest the flame, and his guilt brought burden upon the people, then he must bring a young bull, flawless, from the herd. He would carry it to the tent of meeting, place his hand upon its head, and slay it before Yahweh, the lifeblood falling for his own hidden fault. Then the anointed priest would take of the blood and carry it inward, beyond the veil of common ground. There, before the curtain of the holy place, he would dip his finger into the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before Yahweh, a sign of complete acknowledgement. He would touch the horns of the golden altar of incense, where fragrance rose perpetually, and the remaining blood he poured at the base of the great altar of ascent, where fire never ceased. The fat, the covering folds, the kidneys, the lobe of the liver, was burned on the altar, as in the peace offerings. But the rest of the bull, its skin, flesh, entrails, and refuse, was carried outside the camp to a clean place where ashes were cast. There, beyond the boundaries of the holy, it was burned entirely. And if the whole congregation of Israel erred as one, sin cloaked in ignorance until the guilt was made known, they too must bring a young bull as a sin offering. The elders, as their voice and face, laid hands upon its head before Yahweh, and the bull was slain. Again, the blood was carried inside, sprinkled 7 times, touched to the altar of incense, poured at the base of the altar. The fat was burned in fire. The body was burned outside. A sin offering for the people. Communal fault, communally answered. But if a ruler sinned, one set in authority, yet not above the law, and the sin was made known, he brought a male goat, flawless. He laid his hand upon its head and killed it where the ascent offerings were slain. Its blood was taken and touched to the horns of the altar. The rest poured out. The fat burned in fire. And so atonement was made for him, guilt confessed, mercy granted. And for any among the common people, if a man or woman of the land sinned without intent and came to understand their guilt, they too brought a goat, a female without blemish. With hand upon its head, they offered it to Yahweh. The priest took its blood, touched the horns of the altar, poured the rest below. The fat was taken as before and burned, and the priest made atonement. And if they brought a lamb instead, a female, it too was acceptable. The ritual was the same: the laying of the hand, the shedding of blood, the burning of fat, the reaching toward forgiveness. Each one, priest, prince, assembly, or soul unknown, stood equal before the holiness of Yahweh. Sin, though unintentional, still left its mark. But the blood spoke, the altar received, the fire rose, and Yahweh, ever merciful, granted pardon. And Yahweh spoke again to Moses, his voice unveiling the hidden weight that clings to words unspoken, deeds unseen, and vows made in haste. For not all sin roars aloud, some creep in silence, some are whispered, some are forgotten until light reveals them. If a soul heard the cry of an oath, the voice of imprecation, calling him as witness, yet he kept silent, though he saw or knew, he bore guilt. Silence in the presence of truth became trespass. If one touched that which was unclean, a carcass of beast or creeping thing, wild or tame, even without knowing, the uncleanness clung. When he realized it, guilt awakened. Or if he came in contact with the uncleanness of man, hidden in its hour, but later understood, he stood guilty nonetheless. Or if one spoke rashly, swearing with lips ungoverned, whether to do harm or good, and later remembered what he had uttered, then the oath held weight and guilt followed. When such a soul became aware, when the heart caught up to what the hands or lips had done, then he must confess. No offering could rise where confession was withheld. His mouth must speak the fault that mercy might be near. And he would bring his offering, a female from the flock, lamb or goat, for sin. The priest would offer it before Yahweh, and covering would be given. Sin acknowledged, sin pardoned. But if his hand could not afford a lamb, he would bring 2 birds, turtle doves or young pigeons. One was for sin, the other for assent. The priest would first take the bird for the sin offering, pinch its neck, and drain the blood against the altar. Some would be cast upon the side, the rest wrung out at the base. The second bird would be wholly burned as an assent offering. The fire received what the soul could give, and if even 2 birds lay beyond his reach, then let him bring flour, 1/10 of an ephah. No oil, no frankincense, for it was not a grain of celebration, but of sorrow. The priest would take a handful as memorial, and it would rise in fire upon the altar. The rest belonged to the priest, like the offering of grain. Even in dust, atonement was made. Even in poverty, Yahweh provided the path to pardon. Then Yahweh spoke again. If one sinned by misusing the holy things, perhaps unknowingly taking what was set apart for Yahweh, he must bring a flawless ram. Its value was measured by sacred shekels, and restitution was required. What was taken must be repaid, with a fifth part added and given to the priest. Then the offering would be made, guilt acknowledged, guilt restored. Mercy met justice at the altar. And if a soul sinned against the instructions of Yahweh even without knowing, yet guilt still lay upon him, he too would bring a flawless ram. He would bring silver in weight as assessed. Though he had not known, once he did, he must answer. For ignorance did not absolve the soul. Only repentance did. The priest would make atonement for him with the guilt offering, and it would be pardoned. It is a guilt offering. He was guilty, yes, guilty before Yahweh, yet mercy was near. And again Yahweh spoke to Moses, his words like fire that does not fade, burning steady through the night of human frailty, illuminating the tasks of those called to serve near the flame. If a soul sinned against Yahweh by deceiving a neighbor, through theft, withheld deposit, or silent possession of lost things, though the offense was against man, the guilt belonged before Yahweh. False oaths, broken trusts, hidden wrongs, these cried out for justice. And when guilt was known, when the conscience awakened, the wrong must be repaid in full and more. A fifth was to be added to the value and returned to the wronged one, and on that same day a guilt offering was to be brought, a flawless ram weighed by holy silver. Then the priest would make atonement, and it would be pardoned. Justice first, then sacrifice, restoration before incense. Then Yahweh turned his word toward Aaron and his sons, the keepers of flame and blood. He spoke the law of the ascent offering, the olah that rises in smoke, wholly consumed. This offering was to remain upon the altar through the night, its embers glowing until dawn. The fire must not die. It was to be fed, kept, watched. It was more than flame. It was symbol and sanctuary. Each morning the priest donned linen garments, sacred to his calling, and lifted the ashes, what remained of gift and guilt consumed, and placed them beside the altar. Then, changing his garments, he carried the ash outside the camp to a clean place. Even what was spent was holy. But the fire itself, this fire must burn without ceasing. Morning by morning, wood was placed upon it. The ascent offering was laid again. The fat of peace offerings sizzled in sacred smoke. The fire on the altar was never to be quenched. Day and night, offering after offering, it bore upward the long breath of a people in worship, a fire before Yahweh, ever living. And the mincha, the grain offering, had its law. The sons of Aaron brought it before Yahweh, taking a fistful, flour, oil, and frankincense, and cast it upon the altar in fire, a memorial of the gift. The rest they ate as unleavened bread, consumed in the court of the tent, in a holy place. No leaven was allowed. This portion too was most holy, set apart like the sin and guilt offerings. Only the males of Aaron's line could eat it, and all who touched it were made holy. Yahweh then gave Moses the rite of the priestly offering, a continual mincha, a tenth of an ephah of flour, brought on the day of anointing and every day thereafter. Half in the morning, half at twilight, prepared on a griddle with oil, mixed, baked, fragrant. This offering was not to be eaten. It was wholly burned, for it belonged not to man, but to Yahweh alone. Every offering brought by the priest for himself was to rise in total flame. And Yahweh continued, speaking of the sin offering. In the same place where the ascent offering was slain, the sin offering too was to be slaughtered before Yahweh. It was a holy of holies. The priest who offered it ate of it, within the courtyard, within sacred bounds. All who touched its flesh became holy. If blood spattered garments, they were to be washed in the holy place. Earthen vessels in which the flesh was cooked were broken. Bronze ones were scoured and washed. For what touched this offering touched the holy. Only the sin offering whose blood was brought inside the tent to make atonement in the holy place was not to be eaten. That offering, made for the deepest cleansing, was burned with fire outside the camp. So the instructions deepened, and the pattern was laid bare. Every act of worship, every stain of guilt, every daily devotion flowed toward the altar, where flame burned and did not die. The priests were not merely servants, they were stewards of constancy, guardians of holy fire, and the fire burned on. Through darkness, through dawn, through dust and confession, through grain and blood, it carried every offering upward, a symbol of Yahweh's presence that would not flicker or fade. And Yahweh spoke again, drawing near with fire and command, his voice sealing the sacred order, his word dividing clean from unclean, gift from guilt, portion from privilege. Here, in the hush between instruction and obedience, the final clarifying came. The law of the sacrifice was set. The guilt offering was to be treated as Holy of Holies. In the place where the ascent offering was slain, the guilt offering too was slain. Blood was cast around the altar, fat taken from the tail, from the inward parts, from the kidneys and the liver's lobe, lifted in reverence, consumed in fire. A fire offering to Yahweh, a visible act of unseen repentance. Only the males of the priesthood could eat of it, and only in the sacred court. What touched the flesh became holy. The one who made atonement, his was the portion. The skin of the ascent offering belonged to the priest who offered it. The grain baked or fried, given in devotion, was also the portion of the priest who brought it near. But the rest of the grain offerings, mingled with oil or dry, belonged to all the sons of Aaron, each as his brother. For in service there was also fellowship. Then Yahweh declared the law of the peace offerings, the zavak shelamim. If brought as a thanksgiving, it came with bread, unleavened cakes mingled with oil, wafers anointed with oil, and perforated loaves. Yet with this holy gift came also leavened bread, not for the altar, but for the shared table. From these, one of each kind was lifted as a heave offering, and it became the portion of the priest who had sprinkled the blood. The flesh of the peace offering for thanksgiving must be eaten that very day. Nothing was to remain until morning. If it was a vow or voluntary offering, some could be eaten the next day, but by the third day, whatever remained was to be burned with fire. If any flesh was eaten on that third day, it became unclean, defiled, rejected. The soul that ate it bore guilt. No flesh that touched uncleanness could be eaten. It was to be burned. Only those who were clean might eat of the peace offering, for what was offered to Yahweh could not become common. The soul who approached the table of Yahweh in uncleanness, be it by impurity, by beast, by creeping thing, was to be cut off from among the people. Holiness was not a mere suggestion. It was the law of presence. Then Yahweh gave another eternal decree. No fat of ox, sheep, or goat was to be eaten. It belonged to Yahweh alone. Even the fat of animals that died or were torn might be used for work, but not consumed. Whoever ate of the fat from what was offered would be cut off, and the blood, whether of bird or beast, was forbidden entirely. Blood was the life, and the life was Yahweh's. Any soul who consumed it would be severed from the people. And Yahweh spoke further. When a man brought a peace offering, he must bring his own hands to deliver the gift. He brought the fat, and with it the breast, and the priest would wave the breast before Yahweh as a wave offering. The fat rose in smoke upon the altar. The breast belonged to Aaron and his sons. The right thigh, the heave offering, was given to the priest who offered the blood and fat. These were the appointed portions for the priesthood, the wave breast and the heave thigh. They were not claimed by man, but given by Yahweh, a lasting statute through all generations. So the law was established for a scent offering, grain offering, sin offering, guilt offering, consecration, and peace, each with its order, each with its fire, each with its portion. And Yahweh gave these words to Moses on the mountain, when the cloud was thick and the wilderness wide, when the people were still learning to draw near. These were the instructions for bringing gifts to Yahweh, not with presumption, but with awe. For the altar was not just flame, it was his table, and at his table all was holy. And Yahweh spoke once more to Moses, now not with instruction for sacrifice, but for consecration, for the setting apart of men to stand between the people and the presence, to draw near on behalf of many. The time had come to anoint the servants. Take Aaron and his sons, said Yahweh, and with them the garments, the oil of anointing, the bull of the sin offering, the 2 rams, and the basket of unleavened bread. Then gather the whole assembly to the entrance of the tent of appointment. And Moses did as he was commanded. The people stood assembled before the tent, waiting in the hush of holy anticipation. And Moses spoke, "This is the thing Yahweh has commanded us to do." Then, in full view of the congregation, the work began, not the work of blood alone, but of clothing, oil, and fire. It was the birthing of a priesthood. First, Moses brought Aaron and his sons forward and washed them with water. There, under open sky and watching eyes, water flowed down priestly shoulders. Then he clothed Aaron in garments woven for glory, the tunic, the sash, the robe, and the ephod. He fastened the embroidered band across his chest and placed the breastplate over his heart, setting within it the Urim and the Thummim, stones of divine judgment. Upon Aaron's head he placed the turban, and on its front the golden blossom, the sacred crown inscribed with holiness. So was he arrayed as Yahweh had spoken. Then Moses anointed the tabernacle and everything within, marking them with oil, sanctifying every altar, every vessel, every laver, and its stand. He sprinkled the altar 7 times and poured the oil on Aaron's head, letting it run down, an anointing of calling, of weight, of glory. Aaron was now hallowed. Then his sons were clothed with tunics, sashes, and caps, each made ready for holy duty. Then the first offering was brought near, the young bull for sin. Aaron and his sons laid their hands upon its head, transferring their fault and flesh into it. It was slain, and Moses took the blood and touched it to the horns of the altar, pouring the rest at its base. The fat and inner parts he burned as commanded, but the flesh, hide, and refuse were carried outside and burned with fire beyond the camp. The consecration began in cleansing. Then came the first ram, an ascent offering, whole and rising. Again Aaron and his sons laid their hands upon its head. It was slain, its blood cast around the altar. The body was divided and washed, each part laid on the fire. It rose in smoke, a sweet savor to Yahweh, wholly consumed in flame, an offering of devotion, of giving all. Next came the second ram, the ram of ordination. Aaron and his sons pressed their hands upon its head. It was slain. And now Moses did something new. He took the blood and touched Aaron's right ear, his right thumb, and the big toe of his right foot. Then he did the same to each of Aaron's sons, ear, hand, foot, consecrated to hear the word. to serve with strength, to walk in holiness. The rest of the blood was cast around the altar, and the fat was taken with the right thigh and placed with unleavened bread from the basket, 1 cake, 1 wafer, 1 oil-mingled piece. These Moses placed in the hands of Aaron and his sons. They held them in open palms, and Moses waved them before Yahweh, a gesture of offering, a presentation of men and sacrifice. Then he took them back and burned them upon the altar with fire. The consecration was fragrant, the moment full. Moses also waved the breast of the ram as his own portion, as Yahweh had appointed. And then, mingling what was poured and what was slain, Moses took oil from the anointing and blood from the altar and sprinkled it on Aaron, on his garments, and on his sons and theirs. Thus they were sanctified, body and clothing from head to foot, from shoulder to sole. Then Moses said to them, "Cook the flesh at the entrance of the tent and eat it there with the bread from the basket as commanded. What remains you shall burn with fire. You shall not leave the tent for 7 days until your days of consecration are complete. For 7 days Yahweh will consecrate you. You must remain and keep this charge, that you may not die, for such is the word I have received." And Aaron and his sons obeyed. For 7 days and nights they remained at the tent's door, keeping vigil in sacred stillness, letting the oil sink deep and the blood settle on their skin. A priesthood was born, not in haste, not in words, but in flame and obedience, in silence and blood. And all was done just as Yahweh had commanded by the mouth of Moses. And it came to pass on the 8th day, the day of new beginnings, when the waiting ended and the sacred silence gave way to holy action, that Moses called Aaron, his sons, and the elders of Israel. 7 days they had dwelled at the entrance of the tent, clothed in consecration, bathed in oil and blood. Now the time had come for the priesthood to rise, not in word only, but in fire and offering. Moses spoke to Aaron, saying, "Take for yourself a young bull for a sin offering, and a flawless ram for an assent offering, and bring them before Yahweh." And to the people he declared, "Bring a goat for a sin offering, a calf and a lamb for assent, both unblemished, and a bull and a ram for peace offerings, together with a grain offering mingled with oil. For today Yahweh will appear to you." So they brought all that had been commanded, and stood in the presence of the tent, man and priest, elder and child, the whole assembly drawn to the place where heaven and earth would meet. Then Moses said, "This is the thing Yahweh has commanded, that his glory may appear to you." And he turned to Aaron and said, "Come near to the altar. Offer your sin offering and your assent offering to make atonement for yourself and for the people. Then offer the gifts of the people, that atonement may cover them as well." Aaron obeyed. He drew near and slaughtered the calf for his own sin. His sons brought him the blood. He dipped his finger and touched the horns of the altar, pouring the rest at its base. The fat, kidneys, and lobe of the liver he burned as commanded. The flesh and hide were taken outside the camp and consumed in fire. Then came the ram for his assent offering. The blood was sprinkled round the altar. The head and pieces were placed upon the flame. The inwards and legs were washed and laid on top. It rose in smoke, a fragrant breath unto Yahweh. Next he turned to the people's offering. The goat for their sin was brought and slain. Its blood too was poured and sprinkled. Then came their assent offering, a lamb whole and pure, and it was offered as the morning ritual required. Grain followed, a handful from the palm cast upon the fire, mingled with oil, lifted alongside the rising smoke. Then the bull and ram for peace were brought. Their blood encircled the altar. The fat was laid upon the breasts, and all was consumed in fire. The breast and right thigh Aaron lifted as a wave before Yahweh, the portion appointed by command. Then Aaron lifted his hands toward the people and blessed them. He descended from the altar, the offerings complete, sin, assent, and peace. And Moses and Aaron entered the tent of appointment together, the veil behind them swallowing them into the presence of Yahweh. When they emerged again, they blessed the people. And then glory broke forth. Fire leapt from before Yahweh, not kindled by man, not fed by hands, pure flame from the Holy One Himself. It consumed the ascent offering and the fat upon the altar in a moment, leaving no doubt, no delay. When the people saw it, they cried out in awe. Joy and trembling rose as one. Then all fell upon their faces, the earth bearing the weight of glory, the altar crowned in fire. Yahweh had come near. And the fire still burned on the altar, glowing with glory from the day before. The people remained bowed in awe, the fragrance of peace offerings still lingering in the air. But holiness is not only beauty, it is danger, it is boundary, and it cannot be approached without fear. Then the sons of Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, stepped forward. They took their fire pans, filled them with fire, and laid incense upon them. But it was not commanded fire. It was alien, strange to the pattern Yahweh had spoken. They drew near to offer what He had not asked, to burn before Him what He had not sanctified. And fire came forth again from before Yahweh, but this time not to consume the sacrifice. It devoured them. There, before the tent in the place of glory, they fell, struck down by the very presence they presumed to approach. 2 sons of Aaron, robed in consecration, perished by flame not kindled by man. And Moses turned to his brother, the father now bereaved, and said, "This is what Yahweh has spoken. Among those who draw near to me, I will be sanctified, and before all the people, I will be glorified." Aaron was silent, no weeping, no protest. The fire had spoken. Holiness stood crowned in awe, and grief bowed low before it. Then Moses called Mishael and Elzaphan, the sons of Uzziel, Aaron's uncle, and charged them to carry the bodies away from the holy place. In their garments they lifted the fallen and bore them outside the camp, as Moses had said. And to Aaron and to his remaining sons Eleazar and Ithamar, Moses gave command, "Do not tear your garments. Do not let your hair hang loose. Do not grieve as the people grieve, lest you die and wrath fall on the whole assembly. Let the house of Israel mourn the burning, but you remain within the tent. The oil of Yahweh's anointing is upon you." And they obeyed. Their sorrow was clothed in silence, their mourning sealed beneath linen and flame. Then Yahweh Himself spoke to Aaron for the first time. "Do not drink wine or strong drink when you come into the tent of appointment, you or your sons with you, lest you die. This shall be a statute forever throughout your generations. You must distinguish between the holy and the common, between the unclean and the clean. And you shall teach the sons of Israel all my statutes, which I have spoken through Moses." Holiness could not be blurred, not by wine, not by presumption, not even by sorrow. Then Moses turned again to Aaron, Eleazar, and Ithamar. "Take the grain offering," he said, "what remains of the fire offerings of Yahweh, and eat it unleavened beside the altar. It is most holy. This is your portion. Eat it in a holy place, as Yahweh has commanded. And the breast and the thigh," he said, "you shall eat with your sons and daughters in a clean place. These are given to you from the peace offerings of Israel. They are your portion. a perpetual gift, just as Yahweh has spoken. But when Moses searched for the goat of the sin offering, he found it had been burned. It was not eaten as the command required. And he grew angry with Eleazar and Ithamar. "Why have you not eaten the sin offering in the holy place? It is most holy. It was given to you to bear the guilt of the people, to make atonement before Yahweh. Its blood was not brought into the holy place. You were to eat it, just as I was commanded." But then Aaron spoke, his voice heavy with what words cannot carry. "Behold, today they brought their sin offering and their ascent offering before Yahweh, and these things have happened to me. Had I eaten the sin offering today, would it have been good in Yahweh's eyes?" And Moses heard, and it was good in his eyes. No more was said. The fire still burned. The silence still held, and the fear of Yahweh rested upon them all. Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, These are the animals you may eat among all the beasts that are on the land." A pattern was spoken. The holy was not only in worship or sacrifice, but in the ordinary, in eating, in touching, in what lived among them. Even food was a matter of sanctification. Among the land beasts, they were to eat only those that both bring up the cud and split the hoof completely. Creatures like the ox or the sheep were clean, but there were those that failed one of the signs: the camel, the coney, the hare. They chewed the cud but did not split the hoof. And the boar, though it split the hoof, it did not chew the cud. These were unclean. Their flesh was not to be eaten. Their carcasses were not to be touched. From the waters, only what had fins and scales could be eaten. The seas and rivers swarmed with life, but Yahweh made distinction. The fish were clean, but the creatures without fins or scales, eels, catfish, crabs, shellfish, were an abomination. From the skies among the flying things the division was set again. The vulture, the eagle, the kite, the raven, the owl, the bat, these and others were not to be eaten. What soared with sharp talons and what crept with wings on 4 legs were not food for Israel. Yet some of the winged swarmers were permitted: the locust, the bald locust, the cricket, and the grasshopper. These, with jointed legs for hopping, were clean among their kind. Everything else that swarmed on the ground, every creeping thing with many legs, every creature that moved on its belly or on all 4s, was unclean, not to be eaten, not to be touched. And if touched, the one who touched must wash, must wait, must be unclean until evening. If a carcass fell upon a vessel, it became unclean. A wooden bowl, a sack, a garment, all must be washed. But if the carcass fell into an earthen vessel, the vessel must be broken. If water had been poured on seed and then a carcass touched it, the seed became unclean. But if it had not been wetted, it remained clean. A spring or cistern, a gathering of flowing water, remained clean even if touched by death. But the one who touched was made unclean. Life in motion was not so easily defiled, but flesh was still bound to holiness by contact. Of the reptiles and swarmers, Yahweh listed them: the weasel, lizard, gecko, chameleon, each one a mark of impurity. Their death made anything they touched unclean. And so the people were warned, "Do not defile yourselves with these. Do not make yourselves abominable with swarming things." For the command reached deeper than diet. It reached into the heart. "For I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Sanctify yourselves and be holy, for I am holy." This was not about danger of disease or superstition. This was about distinction between what is holy and what is not, between what is set apart and what is common. The people were to be holy in what they did, in what they handled, in what they ate. so that in every act of daily life the covenant was remembered. For I, Yahweh, am the one who brought you up from the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. So you shall be holy, for I am holy. And so it was given, the law of the beast, the bird, the fish, and the swarmer, to distinguish, to discern, to live as those who are called apart. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, When a woman conceives and gives birth to a male, she shall be unclean 7 days. As in the days of her menstrual impurity she shall be unclean. And on the 8th day the child, the son, is marked. The flesh of his foreskin is cut in covenant. Circumcision, the sign of Abraham, the reminder of promise. From the womb to the altar, the story of Israel continues. Then the mother continues in her days of blood, 33 more, in quiet waiting. She does not touch the holy. She does not enter the sanctuary. Not because she is sinful, but because birth touches mystery. Blood has passed, new life has emerged, and the holiness of the act calls for pause. But if she gives birth to a female, the time doubles. 2 weeks unclean, 66 days more in the flow of cleansing. There is no explanation why the time is longer, only the rhythm of the law. The cycle of life, the flow of blood, the mystery of origin. When her days are fulfilled, whether for a male or a female, she comes. She brings her offering, a lamb a year old for an ascent offering, a dove or turtle dove for a sin offering. She does not come empty. She comes with worship, and the priest receives it, and the offering ascends. And a covering is made, a propitiatory shelter, over her. She is declared clean. But if she cannot afford a lamb, then 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons will suffice. 1 for the ascent offering, 1 for the sin offering. Even the poor are not forgotten in the law of Yahweh. Even the lowly are given a path back to holiness. This is not a punishment for bearing life. It is a holy pause, a sacred rhythm, a recognition that life begins with blood, and holiness waits at the edge of new beginnings. In the flow of blood, in the cry of a child, in the quiet return of a mother to the tabernacle of her God, then she will be clean. Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, If a person develops a swelling, a scab, or a bright spot on the skin of their body, and it appears to be the mark of a leprous disease, that person must be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons who are priests. The priest must examine the affected area. If the hair within the spot has turned white, and the appearance of the spot is deeper than the surface of the skin, then it is a leprous disease. The priest will declare that person unclean. If, however, the bright spot is white, but does not appear deeper than the skin, and the hair has not turned white, the priest shall isolate the person for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest will examine the person again. If the spot remains unchanged and has not spread, the person is to be isolated another 7 days. After that second period, if the spot has faded and not spread in the skin, the priest shall declare the person clean. It is just a scab. The person must wash their clothes and will be clean. But if the scab has spread on the skin after being shown to the priest, the person must return to be examined again. If the spreading is confirmed, the priest will declare the person unclean. It is leprosy. If a person has a boil on the skin and it heals, and afterward a white swelling or reddish-white spot appears where the boil had been, it must be shown to the priest. If the hair in the spot has turned white and the mark appears deeper than the skin, it is a leprous disease. But if there is no white hair and the mark is not deeper than the skin, the person will be isolated for 7 days. If it spreads, they are unclean. If it does not spread, it is just the scar of the boil, and the priest will declare the person clean. If a person suffers a burn on the skin, and the raw flesh afterward shows a reddish-white or white spot, it must be examined. If the hair has turned white and the area appears deeper than the skin, it is leprosy from the burn. The priest will declare the person unclean. If it is not deeper than the skin and has no white hair, the person is to be isolated for 7 days. If it spreads, they are unclean. If it does not spread and has faded, it is the scar of the burn. If a person has a sore on the head or beard, the priest must examine it. If it appears deeper than the skin and the hair in it is yellow and thin, it is a scaly eruption, leprosy of the scalp or beard, and the person is unclean. If the priest sees that the spot is not deeper than the skin and there is no dark hair, the person is to be isolated for 7 days. On the 7th day, if the spot has not spread and there is no yellow hair, and if it appears to be the same, then the person must shave around the sore but not the sore itself. The priest will isolate the person for another 7 days. If after that the sore has not spread and no yellow hair has appeared, the person is clean. They must wash their clothes and will be clean. But if the sore spreads after this period of cleansing, the priest will not need to search for yellow hair. The person is unclean. If the sore remains the same and black hair has grown in it, then it is healed and the person is clean. The priest will declare them clean. If a man or woman has white spots on the skin and the priest sees that they are dull white, it is a harmless rash. They are clean. If a man's hair falls out and he becomes bald, he is clean. If hair falls from the front of his head and he becomes bald on the forehead, he is also clean. But if a reddish-white sore appears on his bald head or forehead, it is a leprous disease. The priest must examine it, and if the spot looks like a leprous disease and has the same appearance as leprosy on the skin, the person is unclean. The priest shall declare them unclean. It is leprosy on the head. Anyone with leprosy must wear torn clothes, leave their hair uncombed, and cover the lower part of their face. They must cry out, "Unclean! Unclean!" As long as they have the disease, they remain unclean. They must live alone outside the camp. If a garment, whether wool or linen or any leather item, has a greenish or reddish mold, it must be brought to the priest. The priest will examine the affected item and isolate it for 7 days. After that, if the mold has spread in the fabric or leather, it is a destructive mildew. The item is unclean. The priest will order the item to be burned in fire, whether it is rotting on the front or back. But if the mold has not spread, the priest will command that the item be washed and isolated for another 7 days. After washing, if the mark has not faded, the object is unclean and must be burned. If the mold has faded, the infected part must be torn out of the fabric or leather. If it appears again later, it must be burned. But if it disappears after washing, the item is to be washed again, and then it will be clean. This is the law concerning leprous disease in garments of wool or linen, in woven or knitted materials, or in leather, for pronouncing them clean or unclean. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "This shall be the law for the leprous person on the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go outside the camp to examine him. If the leprous disease is healed in the afflicted person, the priest shall command that 2 live clean birds be taken, along with cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. One of the birds shall be killed in an earthen vessel over fresh water. The living bird, together with the cedar wood, the scarlet yarn, and the hyssop, shall be dipped in the blood of the bird that was killed over the fresh water. Then the priest shall sprinkle the blood 7 times on the person to be cleansed, and pronounce him clean. The living bird shall be released into the open field. The one being cleansed must wash his clothes, shave off all his hair, and bathe in water. Then he shall be clean. Afterward, he may enter the camp, but must live outside his tent for 7 days. On the 7th day he shall again shave off all his hair, his head, beard, eyebrows, and the rest, and wash his clothes and body in water. Then he shall be clean. On the 8th day he must take 2 male lambs without blemish, 1 ewe lamb a year old without blemish, 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and 1 log of oil. These shall be brought with him to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest shall take 1 of the male lambs and offer it as a guilt offering, along with the log of oil, and wave them as a wave offering before Yahweh. The lamb shall be slaughtered in the holy place where the sin and burnt offerings are slaughtered, for the guilt offering belongs to the priest. It is most holy. The priest shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the right earlobe of the person being cleansed, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Then the priest shall take some of the oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. With his right finger, the priest shall sprinkle some of the oil before Yahweh 7 times. He shall also put some of the oil on the earlobe, thumb, and big toe of the cleansed person, over the blood. The remaining oil in the priest's hand shall be put on the head of the person being cleansed. This is how the priest makes atonement for him before Yahweh. Then the priest shall offer the sin offering, and afterward the burnt offering, along with the grain offering on the altar. This completes the atonement, and the person will be declared clean. If the person is poor and cannot afford all of these, he shall take 1 male lamb for a guilt offering to be waved and to make atonement, 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and a log of oil, along with 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, 1 for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. He shall bring them on the 8th day to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the priest shall wave the lamb and oil as a wave offering before Yahweh. The lamb shall be slaughtered, and the priest shall apply the blood to the right earlobe, right thumb, and right big toe of the person being cleansed. Then the oil shall be sprinkled before Yahweh 7 times, and applied to the same places over the blood. The rest of the oil shall go on the person's head. Afterward, the bird shall be offered, 1 for a sin offering, the other for a burnt offering with the grain offering. The priest shall make atonement, and the person will be clean. This is the law for anyone who has had a leprous disease and cannot afford the full offering for cleansing. Yahweh also spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "When you come into the land of Canaan, which I give you for a possession, and I put a case of mold in a house, the owner shall come to the priest and say, 'It seems there is a plague in my house.' The priest shall order the house to be emptied before he examines it, so nothing in the house becomes unclean. Then the priest shall examine the mold. If it is greenish or reddish appearing deeper than the wall surface, the priest shall shut up the house for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest shall return and examine it again. If the mold has spread, the infected stones must be torn out and thrown outside the city. The house shall be scraped all around and the plaster dumped in an unclean place. Then new stones and fresh mortar shall be used to repair the house. But if the mold returns after these repairs, the priest shall come again. If it has spread, the house is unclean and must be torn down, its stones, wood, and plaster, and taken outside the city. Anyone who enters the house while it is quarantined will be unclean until evening. Anyone who sleeps or eats in it must wash their clothes. If the mold has not spread after the repairs, The priest shall declare the house clean. To purify the house, he shall take 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. 1 bird is killed in an earthenware vessel over fresh water. The cedar wood, hyssop, scarlet yarn, and living bird are dipped into the blood and water and sprinkled on the house 7 times. The living bird is then released outside the city. Thus, atonement is made, and the house is clean. This is the law for every kind of leprous disease, whether of skin, garments, or houses, for swellings, scabs, or bright spots. It teaches when something is clean or unclean. This is the law concerning leprosy. Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when any man has a discharge from his body, his discharge is unclean. This shall be his uncleanness in regard to his discharge. Whether his body flows with his discharge or whether his body is stopped up because of his discharge, it is uncleanness. Every bed on which the man with the discharge lies shall be unclean, and everything on which he sits shall be unclean. Anyone who touches his bed must wash his clothes and bathe in water and will remain unclean until evening. Anyone who sits on an article where the man with the discharge sat shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Whoever touches the flesh of the man with the discharge shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. If the man with the discharge spits on someone who is clean, that person must wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Every saddle or seat the man with the discharge uses is unclean. Anyone who touches anything that was under him shall be unclean until evening. And whoever carries such things must wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Anyone touched by the man with the discharge, if he has not washed his hands in water, must wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. An earthenware vessel the man with the discharge touches must be broken, and any wooden vessel must be rinsed in water. When the man with the discharge is cleansed, he must count 7 days for his cleansing. He shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in fresh water, and he shall be clean. On the 8th day he shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and come before Yahweh at the entrance of the tent of appointment and give them to the priest. The priest shall offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. In this way the priest shall make atonement for him before Yahweh because of his discharge. When a man has an emission of semen, he shall bathe his entire body in water and be unclean until evening. Any garment or leather upon which the semen falls must be washed in water and will be unclean until evening. If a man lies with a woman and there is an emission of semen, both shall bathe in water and be unclean until evening. When a woman has a discharge of blood from her body, she shall be unclean for 7 days, and whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Everything on which she lies during her menstrual impurity shall be unclean, and everything she sits on shall be unclean. Whoever touches her bed must wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Whoever touches any article on which she has sat must do the same. If anything is on her bed or chair when someone touches it, that person shall be unclean until evening. If a man lies with her so that her menstrual blood touches him, he shall be unclean for 7 days, and any bed he lies on shall also be unclean. If a woman has a discharge of blood for many days outside her period, or if it continues beyond her usual time, she shall be unclean as in the days of her period, for all the days of her discharge. Every bed she lies on and every article she sits on shall be unclean like the time of her period. Anyone who touches these things must wash his clothes and bathe in water, and shall be unclean until evening. When she is cleansed of her discharge, she shall count 7 days, and afterward she shall be clean. On the 8th day she shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance of the tent of appointment. The priest shall offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. In this way the priest shall make atonement for her before Yahweh for the uncleanness of her discharge. Thus you shall warn the sons of Israel about their uncleanness, so that they do not die in their uncleanness by defiling my tabernacle, which is in their midst. This is the law for the man with a discharge, for the one with an emission of semen who becomes unclean, for a woman in her period, for one who has a discharge, for male or female, and for the man who lies with an unclean woman. Yahweh spoke to Moses after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron when they approached before Yahweh and died. Yahweh said to Moses, "Tell Aaron your brother not to come at just any time into the holy place behind the veil, before the propitiatory shelter that is on the ark, so that he may not die. For I will appear in the cloud over the propitiatory shelter." This is how Aaron shall enter the holy place, with a young bull from the herd as a sin offering, and a ram as an ascent offering. He shall wear the holy linen tunic, linen undergarments on his flesh, gird himself with a linen sash, and wear a linen turban. These are holy garments. He shall bathe his flesh in water, and then put them on. From the congregation of the sons of Israel he shall take 2 male goats as a sin offering, and 1 ram as an ascent offering. Aaron shall offer the bull as a sin offering for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his household. Then he shall take the 2 goats, and present them before Yahweh at the entrance of the tent of appointment. He shall cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for Yahweh and 1 for Azazel, the goat of departure. The goat on which the lot for Yahweh falls shall be offered as a sin offering, but the goat on which the lot for Azazel falls shall be presented alive before Yahweh, to make atonement with it by sending it away into the wilderness. Aaron shall offer the bull of the sin offering for himself and make atonement for himself and his house. He shall slaughter the bull. Then he shall take a firepan full of burning coals from the altar before Yahweh, and 2 handfuls of finely ground fragrant incense, and bring them inside the veil. He shall place the incense on the fire before Yahweh, so that the cloud of the incense covers the propitiatory shelter on the testimony, lest he die. He shall take some of the bull's blood, and sprinkle it with his finger on the east side of the propitiatory shelter, and in front of it 7 times. Next, he shall slaughter the goat of the sin offering that is for the people, and bring its blood inside the veil. He shall do with its blood as he did with the bull's blood, sprinkling it on and in front of the propitiatory shelter. In this way he shall make atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanness and transgressions of the sons of Israel in all their sins. He shall do the same for the tent of appointment, which remains among them in the midst of their uncleanness. No one may be in the tent of appointment when Aaron enters to make atonement in the holy place until he comes out. He shall make atonement for himself, his household, and for all the assembly of Israel. Then he shall come out to the altar that is before Yahweh and make atonement for it. He shall take some of the bull's blood and some of the goat's blood and put it on the horns of the altar all around. He shall sprinkle some of the blood on it 7 times with his finger to cleanse it and consecrate it from the uncleanness of the Israelites. When he has finished making atonement for the holy place, the tent of appointment, and the altar, he shall bring the live goat forward. He shall lay both hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities, transgressions, and sins of the sons of Israel, putting them on the head of the goat. He shall send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a ready man. The goat shall bear all their iniquities to a remote land, and the man shall release the goat into the wilderness. Then Aaron shall return to the tent of appointment, take off the linen garments he wore when he entered the holy place, and leave them there. He shall bathe his body in water in a holy place, put on his regular garments, and come out to offer his ascent offering and the ascent offering of the people, making atonement for himself and for the people. The fat of the sin offering he shall burn on the altar. The man who releases the goat for Azazel shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. Afterward he may come into the camp. The bull and the goat for the sin offerings, whose blood was brought into the holy place to make atonement, shall be taken outside the camp. Their hides, flesh, and dung shall be burned with fire. The one who burns them shall wash his clothes and bathe in water, and afterward he may come into the camp. This shall be a permanent statute for you. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall humble your souls and do no work, whether native or sojourner living among you. On this day, atonement shall be made for you to cleanse you. You will be clean before Yahweh from all your sins. It is a Sabbath of complete rest for you, and you shall humble yourselves. It is a permanent statute. The priest who is anointed and consecrated to serve as priest in place of his father shall make atonement. He shall put on the holy linen garments and make atonement for the holy sanctuary, for the tent of appointment, and for the altar. He shall make atonement for the priests and for all the people of the assembly. This shall be a permanent statute for you, to make atonement once a year for all the sins of the sons of Israel. And Moses did just as Yahweh commanded him. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron, to his sons, and to all the sons of Israel. Say to them, this is the command Yahweh has given. Any man of the house of Israel who slaughters a bull, a sheep, or a goat, whether inside the camp or outside of it, and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of appointment to offer it as a sacrifice to Yahweh before his tabernacle, blood shall be reckoned against that man. He has shed blood, and he shall be cut off from among his people." This command is given so that the sons of Israel will bring their sacrifices, which they have been offering in the open fields, and instead bring them before Yahweh at the entrance of the tent of appointment. There they shall offer them as sacrifices of peace offerings to Yahweh. The priest shall sprinkle the blood on the altar of Yahweh at the entrance of the tent, and cause the fat to fume as a pleasing aroma to Yahweh. No longer shall they offer their sacrifices to the hairy goat demons after whom they have been prostituting themselves. This shall be an enduring statute for them throughout their generations. Say also to them, any man from the house of Israel, or any sojourner dwelling among you who offers a burnt offering or a sacrifice, and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of appointment to offer it to Yahweh, that man shall be cut off from his people. As for any man from the house of Israel, or from among the sojourners in your midst who eats any blood, Yahweh says, I will set my face against that soul who eats blood, and will cut him off from among his people. For the soul of the flesh is in the blood, and I myself have assigned it to you to make atonement upon the altar for your souls. It is the blood by reason of the soul that makes atonement. Therefore Yahweh commands the sons of Israel, no one among you shall eat blood, and no sojourner among you shall eat blood. Any man from the sons of Israel or any sojourner among you who hunts a wild animal or a bird that may be eaten must pour out its blood and cover it with soil. For the life of all flesh, its soul, is in its blood. As its soul is, so is its blood. Therefore Yahweh has said, You shall not eat the blood of any flesh, for the soul of all flesh is its blood. Whoever eats it shall be cut off. Any person, whether native-born or a sojourner, who eats what died naturally or was torn by beasts must wash his garments and bathe himself in water. He shall remain unclean until evening, then he shall be clean. But if he does not wash his garments and bathe his body, he shall bear his iniquity. Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. You shall not behave according to the deeds of the land of Egypt in which you dwelt, and you shall not behave according to the deeds of the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. You shall not walk in their statutes. My ordinances you shall keep, and my statutes you shall observe to walk in them. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. You shall therefore observe my statutes and my ordinances, for the human who does them shall live by them. I am Yahweh. None of you shall come near to any kin of his flesh to expose their nakedness. I am Yahweh. The nakedness of your father and the nakedness of your mother you shall not expose. She is your mother. You shall not expose her nakedness. The nakedness of your father's wife you shall not expose. It is your father's nakedness. The nakedness of your sister, whether the daughter of your father or the daughter of your mother, born at home or born abroad, you shall not expose their nakedness. The nakedness of your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter you shall not expose, for they are your nakedness. The nakedness of your father's wife's daughter, begotten by your father, she is your sister. You shall not expose her nakedness. You shall not expose the nakedness of your father's sister, for she is the kin of your father. You shall not expose the nakedness of your mother's sister, for she is the kin of your mother. You shall not expose the nakedness of your father's brother. That is, you shall not approach his wife. She is your aunt. The nakedness of your daughter-in-law you shall not expose. She is your son's wife. The nakedness of your brother's wife you shall not expose. She is your brother's nakedness. You shall not expose the nakedness of a woman and her daughter. You shall not take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to expose their nakedness. They are her kin. It is lewdness. You shall not take a woman as a rival to her sister to expose her nakedness while the first is still alive. You shall not approach a woman to expose her nakedness during the uncleanness of her menstruation. You shall not give your emission of semen to the wife of your companion to be unclean with her. You shall not give any of your seed to pass them through fire to Moloch, and you shall not profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahweh. You shall not lie with a male as one lies with a woman. It is an abhorrence. You shall not give your emission to any beast to become unclean with it. Nor shall a woman stand before a beast to copulate with it. It is decadence. Do not defile yourselves in any of these ways. For in all of these things the nations which I am casting out before you have defiled themselves. The land is unclean, and I will visit its iniquity upon it, and the land will vomit out its inhabitants. But you shall keep my statutes and my ordinances. You shall not do any of these abhorrent acts, neither the native-born nor the sojourner who sojourns among you. For all these abominations were done by the men of the land who were before you, and the land became unclean. So do not let the land vomit you out when you defile it, as it vomited out the nation that was before you. For anyone who does any of these abominations, those souls shall be cut off from among their people. Therefore you shall keep my charge, not to do any of these abhorrent practices that were done before you, and so defile yourselves by them. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the whole congregation of the sons of Israel and say to them, You shall be holy, for I, Yahweh your Elohim, am holy. Each of you shall fear his mother and his father, and you shall observe my Sabbaths. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Do not turn yourselves to idols, and you shall not make molten Elohim for yourselves. I am Yahweh your Elohim. When you offer a sacrifice of peace offerings to Yahweh, you shall offer it for your acceptance. It shall be eaten on the day you sacrifice it or on the next day, but what remains until the third day must be burned in fire. If it is eaten on the third day, it is an abomination. It shall not be accepted. The one who eats it shall bear his guilt, for he has profaned what is holy to Yahweh. That soul shall be cut off from among his people. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not finish the edges of your field, and you shall not glean the gleanings of your harvest. Likewise, you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather the fallen grapes. You shall leave them for the humble and the sojourner. I am Yahweh your Elohim. You shall not steal, nor deceive, nor deal falsely with one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name and so profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahweh. You shall not oppress your neighbor nor rob him. The wages of a hired servant shall not remain with you all night until morning. You shall not curse the deaf nor place a stumbling block before the blind. You shall fear your Elohim. I am Yahweh. You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not favor the poor nor honor the great. In righteousness shall you judge your neighbor. You shall not go about as a slanderer among your people, and you shall not stand against the blood of your neighbor. I am Yahweh. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall surely rebuke your neighbor, so that you do not bear sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance nor bear a grudge against the sons of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh. You shall keep my statutes. You shall not let your cattle breed with a different kind. You shall not sow your field with mixed seed, and you shall not wear a garment made of mixed materials, of wool and linen woven together. If a man lies carnally with a woman who is a slave, betrothed to another man, but not yet ransomed or set free, there shall be punishment. They shall not be put to death, because she was not free. He shall bring his guilt offering to Yahweh, to the entrance of the tent of appointment, a ram as a guilt offering. The priest shall make atonement for him with the ram before Yahweh for the sin he has committed, and he shall be forgiven. When you come into the land and plant any kind of tree for food, you shall regard its fruit as forbidden. For 3 years it shall be uncircumcised to you, it shall not be eaten. In the 4th year all its fruit shall be holy, a praise offering to Yahweh. In the 5th year you may eat its fruit, that it may yield more richly to you. I am Yahweh your Elohim. You shall not eat with blood. You shall not practice divination or interpret omens. You shall not round off the hair on the sides of your head or disfigure the edge of your beard. You shall not make cuts on your body for the dead or tattoo yourselves. I am Yahweh. Do not profane your daughter by making her a cult prostitute, lest the land become full of depravity. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. Do not turn to mediums or necromancers. Do not seek them out, to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh your Elohim. You shall rise before the gray-haired and honor the presence of the elder, and you shall fear your Elohim. I am Yahweh. When a sojourner sojourns with you in your land, you shall not mistreat him. The sojourner who resides with you shall be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were sojourners in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. You shall do no injustice in measurements of length, weight, or volume. You shall have just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin. I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out from the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe all my statutes and all my ordinances and do them. I am Yahweh. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, To the sons of Israel you shall speak. Any man from the sons of Israel or from the sojourners dwelling in Israel who gives any of his seed to Molech, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall pelt him with stones. I myself will set my face against that man and cut him off from among his people. For he has given his seed to Molech, thus defiling my sanctuary and profaning my holy name. And if the people of the land close their eyes to that man when he gives his seed to Molech, failing to put him to death, then I will set my face against that man and his family, and I will cut off from among their people both him and all who prostitute themselves after Molech. As for any soul who turns to mediums or wizards, prostituting themselves after them, I will set my face against that soul and cut him off from among his people. Therefore you shall sanctify yourselves and become holy, for I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. You shall observe my statutes and keep them. I am Yahweh, who sanctifies you. If a man curses his father or his mother, he shall surely be put to death. He has cursed his father or his mother. His blood guilt is upon him. If a man commits adultery with the wife of another man, with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. If a man lies with his father's wife, he has uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood guilt is upon them. If a man lies with his daughter-in-law, both shall be put to death. They have acted wickedly. Their blood guilt is upon them. If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood guilt is upon them. If a man takes a woman and her mother, it is depravity. They shall be burned with fire, both he and they, so that there may be no depravity among you. If a man gives his emission to a beast, he shall surely be put to death, and you shall kill the beast. If a woman approaches any beast to mate with it, you shall kill the woman and the beast. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood guilt is upon them. If a man takes his sister, the daughter of his father or the daughter of his mother, and sees her nakedness, and she sees his nakedness, it is a disgrace. They shall be cut off before the eyes of their people. He has exposed his sister's nakedness. He shall bear his guilt. If a man lies with a woman during her menstruation and exposes her nakedness, he has uncovered her flow, and she has uncovered the source of her blood. Both of them shall be cut off from among their people. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister or your father's sister, for that is to make naked one's own close relative. They shall bear their guilt. If a man lies with his aunt, he has uncovered his uncle's nakedness. They shall bear their sin. They shall die childless. If a man takes his brother's wife, it is impurity. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They shall be childless. You shall observe all my statutes and all my ordinances and perform them, so that the land to which I am bringing you to dwell in it will not vomit you out. You shall not walk in the practices of the nations that I am casting out before you, for they committed all these things, and I was disgusted with them. I said to you, you shall inherit their land, and I will give it to you to possess, a land flowing with milk and honey. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim, who has separated you from the peoples. Therefore, you shall make a distinction between the clean animal and the unclean, and between the unclean bird and the clean. You shall not defile yourselves with any animal or bird or anything that creeps on the ground which I have set apart for you to regard as unclean. You shall be holy to me, for I, Yahweh, am holy, and I have separated you from the peoples to be mine. A man or woman who is a medium or a wizard shall surely be put to death. They shall be stoned with stones. Their blood guilt is upon them. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, None of them shall defile himself for a dead person among his people, except for his closest kin, for his mother, for his father, for his son, for his daughter, and for his brother, also for his virgin sister who is near to him, who has had no husband. For her he may defile himself. But he shall not defile himself as a chief man among his people in such a way that he profanes himself. They shall not make a bald patch on their heads, nor shave off the edges of their beards, nor make any cuts in their flesh. They shall be holy to their Elohim, and shall not profane the name of their Elohim. For they offer Yahweh's fire offerings, the bread of their Elohim, therefore they shall be holy. They shall not take a woman who is a prostitute or who has been defiled, nor shall they take a woman who has been put away from her husband, for the priest is holy to his Elohim. You shall treat him as holy, for he offers the bread of your Elohim. He shall be holy to you, for I, Yahweh, who sanctifies you, am holy. If the daughter of any priest profanes herself by prostitution, she profanes her father. She shall be burned with fire. The priest who is highest among his brothers, on whose head the anointing oil has been poured and who has been consecrated to wear the garments, shall not let the hair of his head hang loose, nor tear his garments. He shall not go near any dead body. Not even for his father or his mother shall he defile himself. He shall not go out from the sanctuary, nor shall he profane the sanctuary of his Elohim, for the consecration of the anointing oil of his Elohim is upon him. I am Yahweh. He shall take a wife who is a virgin, a widow or a divorced woman, or a woman defiled by prostitution. These he shall not take. He shall take only a virgin from among his own people as his wife, that he may not profane his offspring among his people. For I, Yahweh, sanctify him. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and say, No man of your descendants throughout their generations who has a blemish may approach to offer the bread of his Elohim. For no man who has a blemish shall approach. A man who is blind or lame, who has a mutilated face or a limb too long, or a man who has a broken foot or a broken hand, or is hunchbacked or a dwarf, or who has a defect in his eye, or eczema or scabs, or crushed testicles. No man of the descendants of Aaron the priest who has a blemish shall come near to offer Yahweh's fire offerings. Since he has a blemish, he shall not come near to offer the bread of his Elohim. He may eat the bread of his Elohim, both of the most holy and of the holy things. But he shall not go near the veil, and he shall not approach the altar, because he has a blemish, that he may not profane my sanctuaries. For I am Yahweh, who sanctifies them. So Moses spoke this to Aaron, to his sons, and to all the sons of Israel. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, that they should separate themselves from the holy things of the sons of Israel which they dedicate to me, so that they do not profane my holy name. I am Yahweh. Say to them, throughout your generations, any man of your offspring who comes near to the holy things which the sons of Israel dedicate to Yahweh, while uncleanness is upon him, that person shall be cut off from before me. I am Yahweh. Any man of the seed of Aaron who is a leper or has a discharge may not eat of the holy things until he is clean. Likewise, whoever touches anything made unclean by a dead body, or a man who has had an emission of semen, or one who touches any unclean creature or any person who makes him unclean, whatever his uncleanness may be, that person shall be unclean until evening and may not eat of the holy things unless he has bathed his body in water. When the sun sets, he will be clean, and afterward he may eat of the holy things, for they are his food. He shall not eat what dies of itself or is torn by beasts, and so become unclean by it. I am Yahweh. They shall keep my charge, lest they bear sin for it and die by it, if they profane it. I am Yahweh who sanctifies them. No layperson may eat of the holy things. A guest of a priest or a hired servant shall not eat of the holy things. But if a priest buys a person with his own money, that person may eat of it, and those born in his house may eat of his food. If the daughter of a priest is married to a layman, she shall not eat of the contribution of the holy things. But if the priest's daughter is widowed or divorced and has no child, and returns to her father's house as in her youth, she may eat of her father's food, yet no layperson shall eat of it. If anyone eats of a holy thing unintentionally, he shall add a fifth to it and give the holy thing to the priest. They shall not profane the holy things of the sons of Israel, which they offer to Yahweh, and cause them to bear guilt by eating their holy things, for I am Yahweh who sanctifies them. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, and to all the sons of Israel, and say to them, If any man of the house of Israel or of the sojourners in Israel presents his offering for any of their vows or for any of their freewill offerings, which they offer to Yahweh as a burnt offering, to be accepted, it must be a male without blemish from the cattle, the sheep, or the goats. Whatever has a blemish you shall not offer, for it will not be acceptable on your behalf. If anyone offers a sacrifice of peace offerings to Yahweh to fulfill a vow or as a freewill offering, from the herd or from the flock, it must be perfect to be accepted. There shall be no blemish in it. Animals that are blind or injured or maimed or have warts or eczema or scabs you shall not offer to Yahweh or give them as a food offering on the altar. You may present a free will offering from an ox or a sheep that has a limb too long or too short, but for a vow it will not be accepted. You shall not offer to Yahweh anything with bruised or crushed or torn or cut testicles, nor shall you do such in your land. You shall not accept any such animals from a foreigner as the bread of your God, because their blemish is in them. They are not acceptable on your behalf. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, When an ox or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall remain 7 days with its mother. From the 8th day onward it shall be acceptable as a food offering to Yahweh. But you shall not kill an animal and its young on the same day. When you sacrifice a thanksgiving offering to Yahweh, you shall sacrifice it so that it may be accepted. It shall be eaten on the same day. You shall leave none of it until morning. I am Yahweh. So you shall keep my commandments and do them. I am Yahweh. You shall not profane my holy name, but I will be sanctified among the sons of Israel. I am Yahweh who sanctifies you, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. I am Yahweh. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, These are the appointed times of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim as holy assemblies. They are my appointed times. 6 days' work shall be done. But the 7th day is a Sabbath of complete rest, a holy assembly. You shall do no occupational work. It is a Sabbath to Yahweh in all your dwellings. These are the appointed times of Yahweh, the holy assemblies which you shall proclaim at their appointed times. In the 1st month, on the 14th day of the month at twilight, is the Passover to Yahweh. On the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread to Yahweh. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the 1st day you shall have a holy assembly and do no occupational work. For 7 days you shall bring near fire offerings to Yahweh. On the 7th day also is a holy assembly. You shall do no occupational work. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, When you come into the land I give to you and you reap its harvest, you shall bring a sheaf of the first of your harvest to the priest. He shall wave the sheaf before Yahweh for your acceptance. On the day after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. On the day you wave the sheaf, you shall offer a flawless 1-year-old male lamb as a burnt offering to Yahweh, along with its grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, a fire offering to Yahweh, a soothing aroma. And its drink offering shall be 1/4 of a hin of wine. You shall eat no bread, roasted grain, or fresh kernels until this same day, until you have brought the offering of your Elohim. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations in all your dwellings. You shall count for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day you brought the wave sheaf, 7 complete Sabbaths. You shall count 50 days to the day after the 7th Sabbath. Then you shall present a new grain offering to Yahweh. From your dwellings you shall bring 2 loaves of bread for a wave offering, made from 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour, baked with leaven. They are first fruits to Yahweh. Along with the bread you shall bring 7 flawless 1-year-old lambs, 1 young bull, and 2 rams. They shall be a burnt offering to Yahweh with their grain offering and drink offerings, a fire offering of soothing aroma to Yahweh. Then you shall offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, and 2 1-year-old male lambs as a peace offering. The priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruits, as a wave offering before Yahweh with the 2 lambs. They shall be holy to Yahweh for the priest. You shall proclaim on this same day a holy assembly. You shall do no occupational work. It is a perpetual statute in all your dwellings throughout your generations. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the edges of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say, in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall have a rest, a memorial of trumpet blasts, a holy assembly. You shall do no occupational work, and you shall bring near a fire offering to Yahweh." Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "On the 10th day of this 7th month is the Day of Atonement. It shall be a holy assembly for you, and you shall humble your souls and bring near a fire offering to Yahweh. You shall do no work on that day, for it is a day of atonement to make atonement on your behalf before Yahweh your Elohim. Anyone who does not humble himself on that day shall be cut off from his people. Anyone who does any work on that day, I will destroy from among his people. You shall do no work at all. It is a perpetual statute throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It is a Sabbath of complete rest to you, and you shall humble your souls. On the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening to evening, you shall keep your Sabbath." Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, on the 15th day of this 7th month is the Feast of Booths, for 7 days to Yahweh. On the 1st day is a holy assembly. You shall do no occupational work. For 7 days you shall bring near fire offerings to Yahweh. On the 8th day you shall have a holy assembly, and you shall bring near a fire offering to Yahweh. It is a solemn gathering. You shall do no occupational work. These are the appointed times of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim as holy assemblies, to bring near fire offerings to Yahweh, burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, and drink offerings, each on its proper day, besides the Sabbaths of Yahweh, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your free will offerings which you give to Yahweh. On the 15th day of the 7th month, after you have gathered in the produce of the land, you shall celebrate the feast of Yahweh for 7 days. On the 1st day shall be a rest, and on the 8th day shall be a rest. On the 1st day you shall take the fruit of splendid trees, palm branches, boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim 7 days. You shall celebrate it as a feast to Yahweh for 7 days in the year. It is a perpetual statute throughout your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. You shall dwell in booths for 7 days. Every native in Israel shall dwell in booths, so that your generations may know that I made the sons of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out from the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh, your Elohim." Thus Moses spoke to the sons of Israel concerning the appointed times of Yahweh. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Instruct the sons of Israel that they should bring to you clear olive oil, pounded for the luminary, to keep the lamp burning continually. Outside the curtain of the testimony in the tent of appointment, Aaron and his sons shall arrange it from evening until morning before Yahweh regularly. This shall be an Aeonian statute throughout your generations. On the pure lampstand shall he arrange the lamps before Yahweh continually. You shall take fine flour and bake 12 perforated cakes. 2/10 of an ephah shall be in each cake. You shall place them in 2 rows, 6 to a row, on the pure table before Yahweh. You shall also place pure frankincense with each row, and it shall serve as a memorial portion for the bread, a fire offering to Yahweh. Every Sabbath day he shall set it in order before Yahweh continually on behalf of the sons of Israel as an everlasting covenant. It shall belong to Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in a holy place, for it is a holy of holies for him from the fire offerings of Yahweh. It is a statute forever." Now a son of an Israelite woman, his father was an Egyptian, went out among the sons of Israel, and a fight broke out in the camp between this son of the Israelite woman and an Israelite man. The son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name and cursed. So they brought him to Moses. The name of his mother was Shelemith, the daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan. They placed him in custody, so that the matter might be made clear to them at the word of Yahweh. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Bring the blasphemer outside the camp, and let all those who heard him lay their hands on his head, and let all the congregation stone him. And to the sons of Israel you shall speak, saying, anyone who curses his Elohim shall bear his sin. Whoever blasphemes the name of Yahweh shall surely be put to death. The entire congregation shall certainly stone him, whether a sojourner or a native. When he blasphemes the name, he shall be put to death. Whoever strikes a human being fatally shall be put to death, and whoever strikes an animal and kills it shall make restitution, life for life. If a man injures his neighbor, just as he has done, so it shall be done to him, fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Just as he has inflicted a blemish on another, so it shall be inflicted on him. The one who kills an animal shall make restitution, but the one who kills a human shall be put to death. You shall have one standard of judgment for the sojourner as well as for the native, for I am Yahweh your Elohim." Then Moses spoke to the sons of Israel, and they brought the blasphemer outside the camp and stoned him with stones. Thus the sons of Israel did just as Yahweh had commanded Moses. Yahweh spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I am giving to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath to Yahweh. For 6 years you shall sow your field and prune your vineyard and gather its produce. But in the 7th year the land shall have a Sabbath of complete rest, a Sabbath to Yahweh. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap what grows of itself or gather the grapes of your untrimmed vines. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. Whatever the land yields during the Sabbath year shall be food for you, your male and female servants, your hired worker and temporary resident who lives with you, and for your livestock and the wild animals in your land. All its growth may be eaten. You shall count off 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be 49 years. Then on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the Day of Atonement, you shall sound a loud trumpet throughout all your land, You shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, and each of you shall return to his property, and each of you shall return to his family. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow or reap what grows of itself, or gather the grapes from the untrimmed vines, for it is a jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You may eat the produce from the field directly. In this jubilee year, each of you shall return to his property. If you make a sale to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor, you shall not exploit one another. You shall pay according to the number of years since the last jubilee, and the seller shall charge you according to the number of harvests. The more years, the higher the price. The fewer years, the lower the price, because what is being sold is the number of harvests. Do not oppress one another, but fear your Elohim, for I am Yahweh, your Elohim. You shall keep my statutes and my ordinances and do them, and you shall dwell securely in the land. The land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill and dwell there securely. If you ask, what will we eat in the 7th year, if we may not sow or gather our crops? I will command my blessing on you in the 6th year, and it will produce a crop sufficient for 3 years. While you sow in the 8th year, you shall eat from the old crop until the 9th year. Until the new crop comes in, you shall eat the old. The land shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine. You are strangers and sojourners with me. Throughout the land that you possess, you shall allow for redemption of the land. If your brother becomes poor and sells some of his property, his nearest redeemer shall come and redeem what his brother has sold. If a man has no one to redeem it but then prospers and finds sufficient means to redeem it, he shall calculate the years since its sale, refund the balance to the man to whom he sold it, and return to his property. But if he does not have sufficient means, what he sold shall remain in the hands of the buyer until the Jubilee. In the Jubilee it shall revert, and he shall return to his property. If a man sells a dwelling house in a walled city, he may redeem it within a full year after its sale. The right of redemption shall last a year. If it is not redeemed within that year, the house in the walled city shall belong permanently to the buyer. It shall not revert in the Jubilee. But houses in villages without walls shall be considered as fields of land. They may be redeemed and shall revert in the Jubilee. The cities of the Levites, the houses in their cities, shall always be redeemable. If a Levite redeems his property, then the house that was sold shall return in the Jubilee. For the houses in the cities of the Levites are their property among the Israelites. But the pasture lands around their cities may not be sold. It is their perpetual possession. If your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, you shall support him as you would a stranger or a sojourner, so that he may live with you. Take no interest or profit from him, but fear your Elohim, that your brother may live beside you. You shall not lend him your money at interest or give him your food for profit. I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan, to be your Elohim. If your brother becomes poor beside you and sells himself to you, you shall not make him serve as a slave. He shall be with you as a hired worker and as a sojourner. He shall serve with you until the year of the Jubilee. Then he shall go free from you, he and his children with him, and return to his own clan and to the property of his fathers. For they are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves. You shall not rule over him ruthlessly, but you shall fear your Elohim. As for your male and female slaves whom you may have, from the nations around you, you may buy them. You may also buy from among the children of sojourners living with you, and from their families born in your land. They shall be your possession. You may bequeath them to your sons after you to inherit as a possession forever. You may make them serve you, but over your Israelite brothers you shall not rule with severity. If a sojourner or stranger with you prospers, and your brother beside him becomes poor and sells himself to the sojourner or to a member of the sojourner's clan, he may be redeemed after he has sold himself. One of his brothers may redeem him, or his uncle or cousin may redeem him, or a close relative from his clan may redeem him, or, if he grows prosperous, he may redeem himself. He shall calculate with his buyer the time from the year he sold himself until the year of Jubilee, and the price of his release shall be based on the number of years, proportionate to a hired worker's wages. If many years remain, he shall refund a portion of the purchase price for his redemption. If only a few years remain, he shall pay accordingly. He shall be treated as a hired worker year by year. He shall not be ruled over harshly in your sight. If he is not redeemed in any of these ways, he and his children shall go free in the year of Jubilee. For to me the sons of Israel are servants. They are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh commanded Israel not to make idols or carved images, nor to set up any stone figure in the land to bow down before it. He declared himself their Elohim. His Sabbaths were to be kept, and his sanctuary honored with reverent fear. If they would walk in his statutes and keep his instructions, Yahweh promised blessings in abundance. Rain would fall in its season, the land would yield its harvest, and trees would bear fruit. Their threshing would last until the grape harvest, and the grape harvest would last until sowing time. They would eat their bread to the full and dwell securely in the land. Yahweh would grant peace so that they would lie down with no fear. Wild animals would be driven away, and no sword would pass through their territory. Enemies would fall before them. 5 would chase 100, and 100 would chase 10,000. He would turn toward them in favor, make them fruitful, multiply them, and uphold his covenant with them. They would eat from old provisions and clear out the old to make room for the new. Yahweh would set his dwelling among them. His soul would not reject them. He would walk among them and be their Elohim, and they would be his people. He reminded them that he had brought them out of Egypt, broken the yoke of their slavery, and enabled them to walk upright. But if they did not listen, if they rejected his statutes and loathed his ordinances so as to break his covenant, then discipline would come. Yahweh would bring terror, wasting disease, and fever that would consume the eyes and drain the spirit. They would sow seed in vain, for enemies would eat their harvest. His face would be set against them, and they would be defeated before their foes. Those who hated them would rule over them, and they would flee though no one pursued. If they still refused to listen, he would discipline them 7-fold for their sins. He would break their pride and make the skies like iron and the land like bronze. Their strength would be spent in vain, for the land and trees would yield nothing. If they continued in hostility toward him, he would increase the afflictions 7-fold. Wild beasts would come, rob them of children, destroy livestock, and reduce their numbers until the roads lay empty. If they still walked in defiance, he himself would oppose them and strike them 7-fold. The sword would come to execute vengeance for the covenant. Even in their cities, plague would break out, and they would be delivered into enemy hands. When he broke the supply of bread, 10 women would bake in one oven, returning rations by weight. They would eat and not be satisfied. If they still did not respond, but walked in opposition, he would strike them in fury, 7-fold for their sins. The horrors would intensify. They would eat the flesh of their sons and daughters. High places would be destroyed, incense altars cut down, and corpses cast upon the carcasses of idols. his soul would loathe them. Cities would be laid waste, sanctuaries desolated, and the pleasing aroma of offerings would no longer be received. The land would become so desolate that even their enemies who dwelled in it would be appalled. Yahweh would scatter them among the nations, with a sword chasing them. Their land would lie desolate, and their cities ruined. Then, at last, the land would enjoy its Sabbaths during all the years it lay empty, resting in the absence of those who failed to grant it rest when they lived upon it. To those who survived among the nations, Yahweh would send fear into their hearts. Even the sound of a rustling leaf would cause them to flee as though pursued by the sword. They would stumble over one another, powerless to stand before enemies. They would perish among the nations, consumed by their own iniquity and the guilt of their ancestors. Yet if they confessed their sin and the sin of their fathers, their treachery, their hostility toward Yahweh and his response in judgment, if their stubborn hearts were humbled and they accepted their guilt, then Yahweh would remember his covenant. He would recall his promises to Jacob, to Isaac, and to Abraham. He would remember the land which had enjoyed its Sabbaths while desolate, and he would acknowledge the guilt of those who had rejected his laws and abhorred his statutes. But even when they were in exile, he would not reject or loathe them to the point of destroying them or annulling his covenant. For he is Yahweh, their Elohim. For their sake, he would remember the covenant with their forefathers, whom he brought out of Egypt before the eyes of the nations to be their Elohim. These are the statutes, ordinances, and laws that Yahweh established between himself and the sons of Israel at Mount Sinai through Moses. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when anyone makes a special vow to Yahweh involving the valuation of persons, the valuation for a male between 20 and 60 years old shall be 50 shekels of silver by the sanctuary shekel. For a female, the valuation shall be 30 shekels. If the person is between 5 and 20 years old, the value shall be 20 shekels for a male and 10 shekels for a female. From 1 month to 5 years, the value shall be 5 shekels for a male and 3 for a female. For someone 60 years or older, the valuation shall be 15 shekels for a male and 10 for a female. If the one making the vow is too poor to meet the valuation, he shall present himself before the priest, who will assign a value according to what the person can afford. If the vow concerns an animal that can be offered as an offering to Yahweh, it shall be holy. It must not be exchanged or substituted, whether good for bad or bad for good. If one does substitute an animal, both it and the substitute become holy and cannot be redeemed. If the vow concerns an unclean animal that may not be offered, the animal shall be presented to the priest, who will determine its value, whether high or low. If the person wishes to redeem it, they must add 1/5 to its value. If a man dedicates his house as holy to Yahweh, the priest shall assess its value, and if the owner wishes to redeem it, he must add 1/5 to the price. If a man dedicates part of his field to Yahweh, its value shall be set according to the seed required to sow it, 50 shekels of silver for each homer of barley seed. If the dedication occurs in the year of Jubilee, the full value stands. If it is made after the Jubilee, the priest will calculate the price based on the remaining years. If the one who dedicated the field wishes to redeem it, he must add 1/5 to the valuation. But if he does not redeem it or sells it to someone else, it shall not be redeemed again. When it is released in the Jubilee, it becomes holy, a devoted field, and shall belong to the priest. If the dedicated land was not part of a man's ancestral holding but land he had purchased, the priest shall calculate the value up to the year of Jubilee, and the man must pay the price that day as something holy to Yahweh. In the year of Jubilee, the land returns to the one from whom it was purchased. all valuations must be calculated using the sanctuary shekel, which is 20 gerahs. Firstborn animals, already belonging to Yahweh, may not be dedicated. Whether ox or sheep, they are his. If the animal is unclean, it may be redeemed according to its value plus 1/5. If not redeemed, it shall be sold for its value. Any devoted thing that a man devotes to Yahweh, whether a person, animal, or field, shall not be sold or redeemed. It is most holy to Yahweh. Anyone under the ban for destruction among mankind shall not be redeemed, but must be put to death. All the tithe of the land, whether from the seed or the fruit, belongs to Yahweh. It is holy to him. If a man wishes to redeem any part of his tithe, he must add 1/5 to its value. Every 10th animal from the herd or flock which passes under the shepherd's rod shall be holy to Yahweh. No distinction is to be made between good and bad, and no substitution is permitted. If substitution is attempted, both the animal and its substitute become holy and cannot be redeemed. These are the commands which Yahweh gave Moses for the sons of Israel on Mount Sinai. With the final words of Leviticus, the laws are set, the holy things consecrated, and the people called to walk in holiness before their Elohim. The camp of Israel stands still at the foot of Mount Sinai, where Yahweh has spoken in fire, cloud, and glory. Yet this is not the end, only the preparation. Ahead lies the wilderness, a place of testing, wandering, rebellion, and grace. In the Book of Numbers, the children of Israel will rise from their encampment and begin their long march toward the land promised to their fathers. The holy tabernacle will move with them. Yahweh will go before them as a pillar of cloud by day and a fire by night, still commanding, still providing, still patient, yet also judging. What has been set in motion here will echo throughout the journey ahead. Obedience will bring life, but disobedience will bring loss. Some will see the land from afar, others will walk through its gates. But all will witness that Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, is not only the lawgiver, but the living guide who walks with his people, even through the wilderness. See you in the next video.